on, one of the things I really touched on a lot was lead analysis and social media. For lead analysis, we talked about pains and addressing those pains.
Welcome to the Howie and Beastmode podcast, where we discuss all things business, including growth, strategy, and execution, as well as personal and professional development. Let's join Howie and Beastmode in conversation.
A couple episodes old. And now that we've talked about that, but I keep seeing operate, and I know I made you mad by using it, but I keep seeing it, like whether it be Nike recycling trash to make tennis shoes, operationalizing good, or Cinemark during the freaking pandemic, taking the time to install electric car chargers at their theaters. It means a lot to me. And by the way, historically, I actually didn't like Cinemark. There's a certain reason why. And it's just personal, it's nothing corporate, just something local. And so like now I do. And so operationalizing good, but I think how can we operationalize? And so those are like unlinked to the core, there's nothing about electric cars that Cinemark, that's part of their core mission. That's just like a side thing. But from you and I, helping businesses and helping business owners or helping people in their career, if we take topics that are within our realm and we operationalize good around those and we help people within our topics, then when they have a need for that, they'll come to us.
Yeah. It almost sounds like giving.
Okay. Kind of unpack that. That's really good.
Right. I mean, giving, it seems like it would be the broad, vague, if I'm just a giver in work, so any person I call, I'm cold calling, whatever. Okay, I can tell this, you're not going to be a client for me, but if I can give you something, if I can give you an insight, if I can give you wisdom, hey, 3 years ago, I was in the same position, blah, 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 but I can leave you better than I found you, then that's kind of what you're talking about. The trickle down is then eventually it's all going to come back positive or in my direction. I wouldn't say towards me, but just in the direction. So.
Yep. Yeah. So let's say you're on the phone with a potential future customer, or a prospect, and you're educating them about kind of what JL does in terms of helping people with their branding and social media execution and planning, all that good stuff. By you kind of sharing freely and having your guard down and not being afraid of giving away, free consulting, there's something just, I trust you more and I appreciate you, and I won't necessarily create a market to bring you in, but if I have a market, you would be considered. I'm not going to guarantee the business, but I'm pretty much guaranteed I'll talk to you, right? And that's all people want in business, is just like a chance, like at bat, get me to at bat. That's like, I appreciate it. Like, thanks for the at bat. And if you don't go with us, cool. But you know what I mean? But I think by part of people building into their process, that concept of operationalizing good and having help be the heart of all that you do. First of all, it's great for your mental health. It feels really good. Second of all, I feel like from getting your priorities straight right, I think your employees and everybody around you will feel good about it too, instead of the companies that are just trying to take all the time and just trying to sneak dollars out of you and nickel and dime you for services or whatever, but you're trying to help them. And so when they think of, that topic, they may invite you to the table later on. If not, what's cool about that too, Beast Mode, is that even if they don't have any, they may refer you.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, I've always come across, or I've always wanted to. There was times when I was unable to, or I was unwilling, but I've always wanted to come across in every sales call as not desperate. I don't. If you agree to business, then wonderful. If you don't, it doesn't matter. I'm going to leave you better than I found you, and that's that. Have a great day. That's always been my mantra whenever especially now that I'm a business owner, is that's the way I want to have sales calls. I don't want to get on the phone and try to force you to do something, or I'm not really listening to you. You know, a big part of me is active listening. Active listening is the whole thing is giving. I'm giving you my time. I'm giving you my energy and emotions. But that's what it takes, I think, to truly understand. And there's something really unique about listening to somebody. Maybe they could be a good fit, you know, if I look at it the right way. But if just telling them, hey, you're not a great fit right now. I think you should do this, this, and this. In 6 months, let's revisit. And not taking their money, I think there's something powerful in that.
I agree. Yeah, you're a very determined person who will do the right thing at your own personal cost. And, you know, I think when you're sowing seeds like that, you know, the Bible says that light is sown for the righteous. I find that so interesting. Another Bible verse, and you and I are unapologetically Christian about our business approach. Although we're not particularly evangelistic on this call, maybe we should be once a year and just lay the gauntlet down. Maybe we should have just an unapologetically evangelistic meeting once a year to give people the full picture. But I'll give you just a breadcrumb right now. Another analogy of kind of that giving and having that come back to you is actually biblical too, which is cast your bread upon the waters, and after many days it will return to you, right? I think the challenge is that people give up on doing good. And
it's risky.
Yeah, they say it didn't work. And I'm like, guys, you've been doing that for 3 weeks. You're not going to change your market in 3 weeks.
Well, it's just super risky. I mean, listen to the verse you just quoted. Cast your bread upon the water, and you know, there's no guarantees that it's going to come back. There's no guarantees that operationalizing goodness, there's no guarantees that it'll bring a reward anytime soon. You know, but if the point of it is I'm sowing the seed so that you'll do something for me, that's disingenuous. Yep. And it's very apparent. In my opinion, it's very it's very apparent to me when somebody's doing that.
Say that again, so you can clip it without me interrupting you.
Oh man, I forgot something about if you're trying to operationalize goodness and it's disingenuous, then it's very apparent, and people notice. I notice. If you're just trying to be my friend and you're not really, then it makes me want to end the call sooner. Yeah. But when you're just super, oh, go ahead.
Well, I had a car dealer where I have huge red flags walking into car dealers, and this particular incident was no different. But I was kind of forced to use this guy, and so I avoided everybody as long as I could, and then I was forced to use this individual. And so, you know, at that point, I'm going to go ahead and be nice, but I'm still cringing. And they would say things that were very flattering, and it was so ugly, and it was so fake and plastic. And the problem is, especially if you sell to a salesperson, they can really, really smell it. And I've been in sales forever. So, you know, I just hate, it's very cringy. So yeah, I agree. People can smell that when it's insincere. So how do we kind of, you know, I think there's there may be 2 or 3 topics. I don't really know what they are, but maybe we should talk about them. Something like, first of all, how do you find what goodness to operationalize or what helpfulness to, you know? So that's maybe
start small.
Maybe one thing. Yeah. Let's just start there. Yeah. Let's just, instead of me listing some.
Yeah.
So yeah, run with that one. Like, how do we decide what goodness would be appropriate for a business owner or for someone, whoever, salesperson, realtor, I don't care, whatever. But how do they decide maybe what to operationalize as far as the goodness?
Yeah, I would just, you know, I'm going to speak across the board because the likelihood that everybody's a business owner is pretty low. So I would just speak across the board that anybody in sales, you just choose an insight. Maybe it's an insight for the month, and it's pre-done. in advance, and it's something that you know is an insight. It's something that you've done some research on, or gained some wisdom or knowledge that is less likely that other people know, and you genuinely share it. And you just say, hey, this is where I'm at for this month. I'm sharing this, and it's genuine in the fact that I'm sharing it. It doesn't have to be spontaneous. I try to tell people that all the time. Spontaneity doesn't predetermine genuineness. I can be genuine and tell you every time I see you, Brian, that it's great to see you. And that's a phrase I use, but I genuinely mean it. So if I tell you every time I see you, it's because I genuinely mean it. And that's a phrase I tell you. And I tell people all the time, I'm rooting for you. And just because you heard me tell the person next to me that I'm rooting for them doesn't delineate that I'm rooting for you. And it's the genuineness of it. So you can have that response, whether it's monthly or quarterly or whatever, depends on your business. So I would start something small like that.
Yeah. So what I took from that was when you're thinking about what goodness to operationalize in your business, definitely start small. That's good, because people do try to boil the ocean. I mean, I'm definitely guilty of that. And then number two.
And the reason being is if you spend all your thought energy on trying to be spontaneous, you're going to lose your genuineness. Because I'm trying to make it spontaneous. Whenever I can have something that's preset, and then I spend all my time just being genuine. And I just want to share this with you.
Yeah.
Is that okay with you? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I got out of what you said too, though, is you don't expect necessarily for it to produce a result.
You shouldn't. It's going to produce a result because seeds produce results.
Yeah.
Yes. But if I have an expectation of I'm going to sow this seed and in a month you're going to produce something back to me, then I'm doing it for the wrong reason.
Yeah.
And then my expectations are just poor. I'm gonna burn out, just like you were talking about earlier. I'm gonna blow up. Yeah. And that's the wrong approach.
Yep. Good.
And this is always should be an addition to what you're already doing. So the genuineness and the sowing seeds is not the only approach. It should not. It should be on top. You should already have your sales pitch or whatever that's included, because you gotta have the facts. You gotta have the meat and potatoes.
One of the things that I'm doing a bad job of right now is on my LinkedIn posting, I have a security series on cybersecurity for families, which is my way of helping people with their families and also generating some light awareness about my company that I work for. So, because I mentioned that on every post that I work for Red Canary, and there's many wonderful companies that provide cybersecurity in the workplace. And so I hope these tips for cybersecurity in your family environment help you, right? So I'm kind of like providing some goodwill, and there's nothing about Red Canary, literally just mentions their name. That's it. And so I'm operationalizing goodness to try to, help families on a topic that I'm interested in. That kind of gets ignored. Let's face it, cybersecurity for family is very ignored, and it's not operationalized at all. But then I also, provide awareness to, from a company standpoint. So if people have company workplace type needs, then they might at least hear our name. So there's that. And then I have another thread about job seeking tips. That's up to 20 as of last night. 20 tips in a series, and some that are not numbered. So probably 24. As well, which I use a hashtag for to manage it and stuff like that. And then I do these one-off inspirational things about workplace and culture and inspiration that just usually it's out of something that I'm dealing with. And the problem with that is, like, if you consider, if you call what I'm doing branding, you can tell that's very fractured. That's like 4 things. And then I have something that I do a little bit more rarely called predictions. I haven't done that in a few months, but like I have quite a number of them. So that's even more fractured. So my point is, I think it's okay to do some of those little sweet inspirational things or humor or whatever. That's okay. But I think in terms of operationalizing good, it's a little bit better if you don't do what I'm doing and if you kind of stay on message. But see, I'm a person, not a company. So maybe there's a little grace there probably. But I think if you're a company or if you're a realtor, or if you're a more disciplined salesperson than me, you might consider staying a little bit closer to your brand. So for example, if you're a realtor and you want to you want to help people and do what Beastmode is talking about with operationalizing goodness and having that kindness be the foundation of all that you do, and yet also help you grow your business, you might want to stay on things that are like news about real estate or housing or statistics or a new company coming in or a festival in your city that's a big deal, so people can start associating you and your brand with being the key knowledge holder for your city or your kind of your target area that you're going to be a realtor. Same thing if you're a cybersecurity company. Can you post some inspiration stuff or some funny stuff? Totally. But it ought to be probably 10% and more of its value added, given from the heart and factually useful in your category, like cybersecurity or whatever, performance monitoring, whatever you're into as a company. So I think, so Jordan, and Beastmo, you've talked about this a little bit before, which is planning. It's okay for you mentioned this clearly not long ago. It's okay that some of the things that you work on in terms of messaging and branding and operationalizing good and these things, it's okay that some of them are spontaneous, but also a lot of them should be planned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In my perspective, 80 to 90% should be planned. And then the other 10 to 20% can be spontaneous, and they can be in addition. Sometimes you can plan something 30, 60, 90 days in advance. And then what happens is, well, whenever it rolls out, 30, 60, 90 days later, it comes up. Well, now I can have a spontaneous thought on something I planned 30, 60, 90 days ago. So now I get a double dip, But whenever and we've talked about this, is that whenever you spend your time trying to be spontaneous, you lose so much of what you actually want to get across. You lose a lot of genuineness. You lose a lot of vulnerability because you're trying so hard to be spontaneous. You're actually losing a lot of your message. And so what happens is, you can kind of have parameters. This is what I want to talk about, and you have 5 or 6, and you're just laying out different thoughts. And you can do that. So if like you're walking somebody through a sales process, I'm going to have a call, and then in 2 weeks, I'm going to have a follow-up. You can have a preset, on my first call, I talk about this. This is my insight. On my second call, I talk about this. They're predetermined, but they are genuine because they're from your heart. That's all that matters.
It's good. Yeah, I think that's really smart advice. And I think different types of content that people produce are probably the main way that you can operationalize good, because it's not like you're going to go to a business owner and wash their windows. That's going to be hard to do. Yeah. You could go, wash even the car windows in the parking lot for a Target account. I'm sure someone has done something like that. You can bring them a basket of cookies. I've done a basket of cookies. I've done breakfast burritos. You know about those stories. Actually, I've closed a lot of business off of breakfast burritos. That sounds funny. But those kinds of things are great, but they don't scale very well. It's not like you can, if your total addressable market in your geography, let's say, is 1,200 accounts. I mean, I can't drop off breakfast burritos everywhere, or cookies, or wash cars, or whatever. So I think that posting and value-added emails, even a mailer, is not too expensive. There's kind of a few ways of mass touching, people with content that is useful. And I'll I know I've mentioned this months ago, but we have a lot of different people on the podcast. I'll mention that I ran an account management team from 2008 to 2012, and I tried all kinds of things to get customers to be more engaged and to grow with us and to also stay with us, because it was a current customer related team. And we tried cookies, we tried phone calls, we tried different types of tracking and different things like that, but the main thing that worked was insights, to be honest. And that's a 4-year trial. So I learned that the hard way because I tried everything. So I think, what we're talking about today can really help some people, whether you're going to grow a current customer or develop new customers in new markets. Looking for ways to operationalizing good, particularly with insights, I think is going to be super, super helpful.
Yeah. I mean, kind of the cherry on top is if you can personalize the operationalized goodness, then then the result, the ripple back is much quicker, So in my entry, let's just say my entry phone call that I had, and then I scheduled a 2-week, if I can personalize something from that entry call in my second call, that I'm still operationalizing goodness, but it's personal because maybe I've captured, the person's anniversary or something. I was actively listening and I caught something. Now, whenever I personalize it, that compounding effect is pretty catastrophic in the positive direction. And that's where, if you're in the account management role or you have these accounts that you're following up with quarterly, yearly, that's where you really hit it. When you personalize, you're not just sending cookies at a random, but you personalize when they get those cookies, man, that's whenever it really just hits home,
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I really agree. Personalization is key. There's a famous book that's been around for about 9 years now called The Challenger Sale. I think it's been around 9 years. And then there's one that came after that called The Challenger Customer. It's pretty much transformed sales, those 2 books by themselves. And it does talk about personalization. They call it tailoring, but same exact word. So
yeah, I don't remember who it was, but they were talking with Donald Miller probably at least a year ago on gift giving, from the business perspective. And the gift giving should not be about you, which is the same way when we're operationalizing this goodness, it's not about you. And so when you're operationalizing the goodness or you're gift giving or whatever you're doing, it's all about the customer. So it should never be about your business. It should never be about your sale. It should never be about them. It should only be about the individual receiving the gift.
Let's get a little bit selfish for a second. I mean, the aspect of this that, also has to be part of your planning, and you're big on planning, is that goodness, if it's about funny cat videos, probably not going to be on brand for you, probably not going to lead them to think about you later. So you want to make sure that you're unselfish and that you're giving with that expectation, but you're giving within your category so they think about you the next time they need that.
Yeah, I guess from the perspective that they were coming from in this one particular one is if I give you a gift that's tailored to you, that's personal, specific, and genuine, then it's going to remind you about what I do. Or it's going to remind you that we need to have a deeper conversation about what I do. And so that's really the trigger to that. Now it takes more thought, it takes more engagement. Sometimes it's more expensive, but we talked about too, it's almost hyper tailored. And so,
yeah,
but you don't do it for everybody. So you got 1,200 accounts, you're not hitting all 1,200 like that.
No way.
At least not initially. You set a game plan for over the next 5 years. I'd like to get all 1,200 accounts in a hyper tailored calendar, to where now I've planned it. Now I can repeat it, because if you're still only hitting them once a year, that once a year is pretty phenomenal, even if it's the same day once a year.
Yep.
So
it's good. Yeah, and I think, if you have 1,200, I mean, I'm hiring someone right now who picked up a process from somebody she worked for where they would do 5 a week, that's a lot more manageable. If you have, let's say, a couple of weeks off for vacation or something, but if you did 50 a week, that's 250 a year. I mean, that's a lot of personal outreach. It's quite a bit. So, and then you can, put them in your system, or I hope you don't use a spreadsheet to organize yourself. But even if you had them in a spreadsheet and you kept track of when you touched them last and what you sent them, that would be at least plan B. Plan A is you have them in a CRM system. But, if you had 5 a week and it's very, very tailored, hyper tailored, and then hopefully, it'd be really nice if that one time had a couple touches, like it was send them something very, very interesting, follow up with a voicemail, let them know they got it. If they have any questions, they can ping you back, I mean, that's really nice, right? And there's no expectations. You're not selling there, but you're providing that value. And then when they think about that category, so in your case, when they think about branding or they think about social media execution and planning, who else would they think about? Literally the person who helped them and was kind to them.
Yeah. That just stood out. And you remember me telling you about the CEO of Home Depot? How he writes, I think it's 100 personalized letters a week.
Really? A week?
To employees.
Okay.
Like as like an employee retention. So he has supervisors, managers, and store owners, and et cetera, funneling the information to him. But he's created a habit, over time, and he has found that really works. It's
amazing.
And that, so it doesn't. This works in-house too. Is kind of what I was getting at. It doesn't just work for clients. It works for employee retention and satisfaction as well. You can have.
I like the in-house. I hadn't thought about that, but my sister-in-law does that with virtual coffees. She has these little virtual coffees with Kim, apparently all the time. And it's not necessarily an agenda. It's just to get to know people and offer some value. So yeah, I mean, I think the internal aspect of this could be very useful. I mean, some of the people that we're talking to work for pretty big companies. It's almost like they're their own ecosystem. So operationalizing goodness inside could be really beneficial. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah. So how do you want to close this out today?
I mean, people are looking for a different way to develop their business. People are looking for a way to develop an authentic business that has reliable growth over time. And yet they're swimming in a sea of sharks and used car salespeople. So if you act not like a shark, and if you act not like a used car salesperson, but instead you operationalize good, over time, you'll set yourself apart. It is slower. So you have to have patience with that. And you have to do a good job with the execution of it. But this is the way of the future, is, like you said, personalization, providing insights, very planned, but very purposeful and very personalized insights delivered, in a solidly executed way. I think that's the future of business, not the spray and pray spammy kind of stuff that we have all around us right now. So I just encourage people to try out some of these ideas. If you can write down 3 things out of this, rewind it, write down a few notes for yourself, and get your plan together. Start with a plan in your category of expertise, and find your target prospects, and provide that value to them on a regular basis. And also, Beastmode, instead of just sending something, I think people should really offer a chat about that too. A follow-up chat.
Yeah, I really agree. My goal is to make it as practical as possible, and to give takeaways. I'm not a fan of, come to seminars, come to listen to my podcasts, and basically you're as helpless as you were when you walked in the door, And so, if you can't take anything away, just take away where you already are. Plan it for 30 days. The same content. Okay. And you just watch the natural progression of that same content. There's going to be some episodes that you can go back and listen to and get more detail on that specifically on prospecting and social media. So whenever that one comes, then you go dive deep into that one. Listen to that one. But this one's about giving. Focus on the giving. Focus on the output.
It'll work.
But, all right, Howie. It's been a pleasure as always.
Where can they find us?
Anywhere your podcast, anywhere you find podcasts. We're on so many platforms, even the small ones. You can find us on. We do a lot of streaming on YouTube and Facebook, and so if you ever want to interact, then those are two good platforms to jump on. We haven't done the lunches or coffees with Howie and Beastmode in a while, but when we do, that's where
We will.
those will jump on. So. And if you're doing something that's that you'd like to share with us, or you'd like to jump on and have a conversation, then you can send us an email at howieandbeastmode@gmail.com, and we'd love to continue the conversation there.
Absolutely. Good luck. Thanks.